Hey, it's Craig Valine, and if you're just joining us with my friend Dan Kimbell, 30-year veteran IP attorney and expert. And today we're talking about what are the biggest mistakes inventors make when developing their inventions. Dan?
Yeah, if you're listening in, you know that inventing is very hard work. Um, and if you do it right, it's hard work. If you do it wrong, it's even harder. So we've all, you learn by doing, but you really don't want to make all the mistakes that are possible because you'll run out of time and money. So what are some of the biggest mistakes inventors make when developing inventions? Um, First, I'll give you 10 reasons. There's more, but I can give you 10. Lack of thorough research.
Mhm.
If you fail to do a comprehensive patent search before you start on the patent route, you'll make a big mistake. You really need to know what the landscape looks like because maybe your invention has already been patented. Maybe it wasn't patented, but somebody tried and they failed. So it's still in the patent records. So you will be rejected. So lack of doing thorough research is reason number one. Also, when you do patent searching, it really helps you and the patent attorney figure out like what the focus of the patent application should be. Maybe there's certain aspects that aren't really patentable, but others are. So doing the research can really help you refine your patent application. Um, Another thing that's really important is, neglecting market and user needs. Without considering the market demand or user needs, you could be working on an invention that has no market viability, and maybe it's patentable. Maybe you can get a patent on it, but if there's no market for it, why are you doing it? It's a very expensive hobby to patent applications. So you should really conduct some market research to identify target audiences, understand customer preferences, and make sure that your invention aligns with these actual markets. Does the world really need another toilet paper dispenser? I think not.
Right.
A third reason is lack of adequate intellectual property protection. So again, I mentioned, you can get a patent on certain things, but if you don't and it's valuable, you will be copied. You will be copied for sure if you have something that's good and achieve commercial success. So if you can get a patent on something and you think the market's there for your invention, you should go ahead and do it. Otherwise, you will be copied if you succeed. If you don't succeed, you won't be copied, but who cares, right? You're planning on succeeding, so try to get a patent.
That's funny. I used to I used to speak a lot. In fact, I put on my own event, and I had a special event where I had my mentor out, and this guy who attended ended up being a guru or marketing guru to the chiropractic field. And that was also one of my fields that I catered to. In fact, I sponsored a local group here in Pasadena. And one month I was not able to attend that particular group meeting. And that guru came into town and shared his presentation. My friend who ran the office and had invited me as the sponsor and everything, said, I've seen that presentation before. And the guy says, oh, yeah, where? He goes, my friend Craig Valine. He goes, oh, I don't know, Craig. And then we found out he was an attendee at the very place where I presented that information. He was using his presentation as my presentation, traveling to chiropractic offices around the country, saying,
Oh, wow.
It was almost word for word mine, except for his information at the end slide where it says, hey, for more valuable information or whatever. But it's just, I never protected it because I didn't think, to some degree it's common information, but I put it into a system, where if you just do these things, you'll accomplish this result. And he used that system as his own.
Yeah, that was a copyright violation,
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And I had
that's
done what we've said before. I had put copyright, all rights reserved on the bottom,
Mhm.
but he just basically swiped it. One of the challenges, and I think this happens to a lot of experts who share documented things, is they provide the slides after their presentations in a PDF or something to that effect.
Right.
And mine must have been copyable. I mean, he must have like screenshot them because they were exactly the same. PowerPoint design, PowerPoint font, everything was exactly the same.
Well,
Anyway, so inadequate protection of intellectual property, that was my bad. I just never thought
yeah.
someone would take it word for word.
Yeah, you live and learn. And did you ever do anything with him? Did you follow up
No,
with
the
him?
guy doesn't. He's not even in the business anymore.
Okay, well, that shows you, yeah, that kind of personality. Cheaters don't achieve long-term success usually, but sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes they do.
Anyway,
Anyways, going back to some of the common mistakes, another mistake is poor documentation and record keeping. So if you fail to maintain a thorough documentation of the development process, you can have some problems. If you keep detailed documents, if there's a question about who invented first, you can prove that you invented first, because sometimes two inventors invent something around the same time and one files a patent application. And if you have records that show you were developing and you acted responsibly and moved to patent as soon as you can, then you can actually win in a patent interference. That's a legal process where two inventions are considered to determine who invented first and who wins. So proper record keeping could really help you.
I've got another one I've got to inject. I have a friend who's a comedian, and he's a screenwriter, and he was with a very popular producer that he knew, and they were having beers, and they came up with an idea for a movie that ended up being a very successful movie. And I was there when he took the call, and the guy says, "Oh, it was my idea, so I'm going to do it." And he goes, "No, I have every document. Every time we met, I wrote down a note saying when we talked about it, who presented the idea, and he ended up co-producing the movie with the guy, but it was like, had he not, he wouldn't have been edged out completely in this movie and had no money in it whatsoever. The guy was trying to say, your idea, you didn't come up with this. I had this idea 10 years. He goes, the storyline I have, documented completely, and that saved his butt and made him a millionaire because he was able to do that. But still,
yeah. Welcome to the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
it's same with other industries.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good. Well, that leads to the next thing, is kind of similar, is premature disclosure of the invention. Sometimes inventors are so excited, look what I've done. This is my baby, how beautiful it is. Well, if you do that before you file for patent protection, either a provisional or a regular patent application, then you can let the cat out of the bag, and somebody unscrupulous person will just swipe down. And it's not limited to just people, small people. Big companies do it all the time. Yeah. And so, sometimes inventors think like, well, I want to meet with this big company because I can't do it on my own. And the big companies say, well, we don't sign the NDAs. And then what happens is you go, and then they will file a patent application very shortly after meeting with you if it's worthwhile, and your name won't be on it.
Right.
So yeah, again, and like I mentioned, the manufacturers sometimes will just swoop in and take inventions that aren't theirs and start offering them. So yeah, you don't want to do that. Another reason is if, let's say, you're a scientist and you publish data around your invention, you can actually lose your patent rights by making a public disclosure of the invention before you file. In fact, in Europe and most of the world, if you disclose an invention before you file for a patent application, you lose your rights. US is a little more forgiving, but pretty much every other country in the world requires that you file a patent before you disclose. So I just tell clients, just file, even if it's a provisional application, to preserve your rights. Otherwise, you may lose your rights on something very important. Okay, next reason, next mistake, lack of a business plan. So if you don't have a comprehensive business plan, it's kind of like, how are you going to commercialize or make this invention make you money, make it worthwhile. It doesn't have to be, a business plan doesn't have to be super formal, but you have to go through the steps to think about, what is the marketing potential, the commercial invention, the commercial potential of your invention. Because sometimes it's a great idea, but there's just no market for it. So going through the business planning and financial and marketing planning is really important. Otherwise, you may discover, if you go through the process of business planning, that there's no market and you can't get it off the ground. So maybe it's better just take that money and take a vacation instead of spending it on your patent.
Right.
Another mistake that's common, well, it's a little less common, but it still comes up a lot, is overlooking the manufacturing and scalability considerations. So some things can be made, but they're too darn hard to make. There's no way to manufacture them, or they're too expensive. So if you've got an invention that offers some advantage, but the disadvantages of the cost and manufacturing difficulties outweigh the benefits, it's just not going to get off the ground, right? A common rule of thumb is, if your cost of goods is more than about 30%, it's very hard to make money. Because if you want to make something, there's the overhead costs, marketing costs, inventory costs, personnel costs. There's just a lot of costs. And if your manufacturing costs are too high, it's never going to succeed. So if you watch Shark Tank, they always ask, what's your cost of goods?
Right.
A very important question. That's part of the manufacturing and scalability considerations. Scalability is like, if you can make 100 of them, that's great, but 100 of a lot of things isn't going to cut it. So can you actually scale up the manufacturing? Are your costs going to drop dramatically if you scale up? If they are, that's good. If they're not, that's bad generally. So you need manufacturing capability and scalability.
That reminds us of a friend, Les Conard, Washout Watchdog. For the longest time, he used an external plastics rotomolding company to do his thing. And there were two problems with that. Number one, it was very expensive. Number two, he was secondary. He was always put second in as far as priority, putting his stuff on the machines when he needed. So if he got a big order, he was always at the mercy of the company producing. And if they had bigger orders from larger customers, they always had to do that. So he was able to invest in not only one rotomolding machine, but also two. And so he could do both his small projects and his large projects and save that cost. And that took him from about $700,000 to over $1 million in sales as a result of doing that. Mm-hmm. Another problem that he has is his welding, materials and all that stuff. His welding was like, it was almost like somebody doing an art project for every single thing that he had to do. It was just a lot of money to produce a thing. I think since then he saved some money with his welder, but and he produced a great product, but it's just hard to scale, right? You can't produce 10 in a moment's notice. It's going to take time, money, and effort to do that. So
yeah. No, that's a great insight into that. There's a lot to be said for companies that are vertically integrated, like Tesla. They make most of their parts in their cars. Recently, Ford couldn't release cars because they had a third party making emblems. Right. So I don't know if you heard that, but it was kind of ridiculous. Like, we don't have the Ford emblems. We can't sell the cars because the manufacturer who's making the Ford emblems for us is back ordering them for us. That's ridiculous. Versus Tesla, they can't find manufacturers to make what they need. They'll make it themselves.
Yeah.
So, in the profit that you would give a manufacturer, a supplier, you keep yourself.
Right.
And you have control over everything. So it's better to be vertically integrated. Yeah.
So I think you're on number 8.
Okay, number 8. Yeah. Again, rugged individual inventors. It's too hard to do things on your own. Being isolated and failure to seek advice is a big mistake. Yeah. Inventing can be a solitary process. You need some, alone time to think through, but you should avoid trying to do everything yourself. Failing to get advice from people who've been there and done that, for working with mentors or professionals in your relevant field, can limit your input and feedback. Sometimes you're wrong and you need somebody to tell you the honest truth, and get guidance where it can help you to refine your invention and navigate the field. Now, some people can be naysayers and negative, but it shouldn't stop you from, working with others. If you find somebody who's just always a naysayer and negative, maybe avoid them.
Right.
But people who know, who've done it, you should listen to them. And, it gets you out of your cocoon, and it can really help your invention process.
Yeah.
Another problem that's very common is unrealistic expectations. People say, "Oh, I have this great invention. Everyone's just gonna come to my door." The old saying, "If you build a better mouse trap, people will flock to your door." It's completely false. People don't flock to your door if you have a better invention. It's really hard to promote invention. So I think you always have to have, realism in the equation. So you don't set yourself up for disappointment. It's hard to invent, and it's even harder to sell your inventions and get it out there. There's many obstacles. So you got to be realistic about how hard it's going to be, how much time it's going to take, how much effort, how much pushing, and maybe, success will not come overnight. Maybe you're going to have to take some time. So, hope is not a business plan. You really got to plan it. So,
Right.
Anyways, and the last mistake is lack of perseverance. So, again, inventing is really hard. Inventing something and bringing it to market can be a long and arduous road. Inventors usually underestimate how much time, money, effort, setbacks it takes. My daughter, who's an artist, has this nice drawing on a refrigerator. It shows the flow chart of inventing and success. It's like a curve that goes down and goes up. And you start out, you're all positive, and then you start working on it, and then at the very bottom, you feel like, I'm never going to succeed. It's never going to work. And you keep pushing through, and eventually it starts coming up, and then you realize that, hey, this might actually work. And then eventually it's like, hey, success was so easy.
Yeah.
Everyone says, how did you do it so easily? It's not easy, but if you persevere, sometimes you can succeed. So being aware of some common mistakes can allow you to take some proactive steps to deal with them and increase your chances of success. Seeking professional help and learning from experienced inventors and business people can make the patenting process more effective and likely to succeed.